You know the vibes. Welcome to the Hoop Genius podcast, brought to you by NBA 2K25. It's myself, Mooncey, alongside me, as always, the super agent himself, Mr. BJ
Oh,
Armstrong.
oh wow, that's a little different. That's a little different.
I had to give you that one because of today's topic. But
Oh, okay.
first and foremost, BJ, what do you think of the cut? I tried a new barber today. What do you think of the cut? How looking?
It's tough. I like it.
Okay, decent.
I like
It's
it.
always risky
I
because
like it.
my barber wasn't available. So he said, don't worry, I've got you booked in with my friend. And you know, in the barber shop, there's always the good barber, and then there's the barber no one really goes to. So I was a little bit nervous, but here we are. I think I survived, and I think it's a pretty good trim. So shout out to Charlie who did my trim. But we have to talk, of course, about the retirement of one Mr. Derrick Rose. A whole bunch of people have messaged me because they can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. So I'm gonna
Oh
leave it
wow.
to you. And it goes without saying that actually, you know what? Before I leave it to you and we talk about his career,
Yeah.
I want to talk about one thing in particular.
Okay.
Because obviously, BJ, I do this podcast, I do the TV stuff, but one thing I also do is I work with a lot of brands on, branding and trying to grow the basketball market around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
Mm-hmm.
one campaign that's always stood out to me when I was a child, right? And I couldn't actually make it down for this campaign. I can't remember why I had that going on that day. I had a game or something, but there was a campaign once upon a time in London, where one Mr. Derrick Rose and one Mr. BJ Armstrong came to town, and you had
Oh,
to,
you remember that? You remember that
yeah,
moment?
because I was mad that I couldn't make it because my
Oh
friends came
wow.
back with the new D Rose shoes, and I'm like, where you guys get this? And they're like, oh, because I was on a different team as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
you had to jump to a certain height to get the shoe, which I thought was really innovative. But also the way that the word of mouth about that event got out. I remember it being promoted in like chicken shops. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of chicken shops. Well,
Yeah.
you
What's
must
a
be because
chicken
you
shop?
planned it.
No.
It's where you
No.
can
What's a
buy
chicken
chicken and
shop?
chips, fried chicken and chips.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we
Is that
grew
what
up on,
yeah,
right? So
yes,
like
yes,
Morley's or
yes,
Sam's or Chicken
yes,
Cottage or whatever
yes.
it is. So it was promoted because this is before social media was really huge like it is now.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that campaign was a huge
It
impact. We
was
don't really
massive.
see many campaigns like that anymore, but there
It
was
was
thousands of
it was
people there ready for it.
yes,
Talk to us
yes.
about putting that campaign together and why you guys wanted to do it in London and all those kind of things.
Well, it was an incredible turnout. I remember that. I wish I could find the video. I have it somewhere around here because it was such an amazing turnout there in London, and we loved it. It was we didn't know really what to expect, but what we did there is we decided in London and in Europe to do a campaign that was just really based on at the grassroots level. And we did that with Derek in Chicago. Instead of just doing the mainstream and traditional way of doing marketing, we decided to do it in a way that was just kind of underground. And we did it in places where the people were gonna, we could touch the people, but more importantly, we kind of identified his audience and we stayed in his audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. And we did it in Paris, but in London in particular, it was beautiful. It was, when I tell you it was like it was above anything we ever anticipated, just thousands of people showed up and we gave away shoes and there was a promotion and there was video and it was so authentic. And we got a chance to see London in a way we never thought, that we would ever see. But
Big,
more
you
importantly,
guys came to the hood.
yeah, we
You ain't at
came.
Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, yeah, we
You came
came.
to
We
see the
came.
real.
We saw the real people, and they showed us love, and I will never forget it. It was great, and we loved it. I mean, we loved it. We still talk about that trip. It was just fantastic. The way, first of all, how we organized it with Adidas, with the city, and some people there. We were working local promoters, and we pulled it off. And it had music, and it was just great. And we saw it was like we were right at home. So it was good because we were just getting, it was like we were in London, but we were,
It's a home away from home, bro.
yeah, and it was beautiful.
This is how I
So
feel in New York.
Yeah, it was great, and we loved it. So, shout out to London for that experience. It was fantastic. I wish we could do it again because that's how much fun
Hey,
we
hey,
had.
hey, we can.
Oh yeah, we
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 can do
should
it
because
bigger and better.
yeah,
If you
we
want to run it
I
back, I can make it happen.
well make it happen because it was great. I mean, no, really, we had a great time. I remember we us talking about it and the music and the hip hop, and it was great. It was just it was one of those moments in time that we'll never forget, and all of us talked about it, and we really appreciate it. And thanks, shout out to London. That was love.
Not only was that an amazing activation, Derrick Rose had an amazing career. So let's talk a little bit about that, BJ. When did you first connect with Derrick Rose? Because obviously he came up in Chicago, hometown kid. When did he first pop onto your radar?
Yeah, I remember hearing about this kid. Everyone kept talking about. It was like, oh, you got to see this kid. You got to see this kid. I think he might have been a freshman or a sophomore, somewhere around there. And I had heard about this kid. They keep saying, it's this kid from Inglewood. It's this kid from Inglewood. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I just one day I had nothing going on, and I just casually, boy, I'll just go watch basketball. It doesn't matter. I don't care what level it is. I'll just go
Inglewood in
watch
Chicago,
basketball.
not Inglewood, LA.
Inglewood in Chicago. And so I went to watch this kid play, and I was like, oh wow, who is that kid? He was like, man, that's D Rose. And I was like, okay, what's his name? They was like, that's just D Rose. And so I remember watching him, and I said, okay, I'm going to come back. And I didn't see him again to his senior year, and I could see early on he had some gifts. But then I saw him his senior year, and I was like, that kid could probably play in the NBA right now. Like I was like, it was like you saw like a kid that was good for high school, and you go, okay, he could be good. But you saw a kid that had some really, he had a gift, and his speed and the way that he attacked the basket was just extraordinary for a young player. And then what really attracted me to him was one, how he could finish with his left hand at the basket. I just thought for a young player to be able to play with his opposite hand, because he was a right-handed player, it was just fascinating. So I just made it my business to start just seeing how good this kid could be. But the jump mode from his sophomore year in high school to his senior year was so dramatic that I wanted to know what he was doing. Like I saw him as a sophomore, then I saw him as a senior, and I was like, oh wow. And then I saw him his senior year, like in the McDonald's All-American game, and he was improving. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, and he was just getting better and better every single time. And I just kept watching from afar and watching him. And lo and behold, Mo, I was able to make the connection and, you work at it, you win some, you lose some, and I got lucky. That's the best I can say. I wish I could tell you I had a special pitch or I got lucky, Bo, and started working together. And here we are 16, 17 years later, and
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
he's retired. So it was just a great run. I can remember my first time seeing him and watching him now, watching his game as it matured and all of his journey. So it was an incredible, incredible run to watch him play, watch him go from this young man who was a teenager to now he has kids, family, he's married, he's gone through his entire career. And here I am talking on a podcast, which I never imagined 16, 17 years ago. What up? Someone told me I'd be talking about this on a podcast. I'd have been like, what's a podcast? And here we are. So, it was incredible. I have so much to thank, so many people to thank his mom and his family, his brothers, and of course, Derek, and now his kids and his wife, and and all the people and all the friends, Adidas. So just so many people to thank, the Bulls and the Knicks and the NBA, and watching him achieve what he achieved, All-Star, MVP. It's just so many people to thank. So thanks to everyone. I know I'm forgetting people. So just thanks to everyone, and what an incredible journey it was. And now I'm just as excited to see what he's going to do next, because
I,
he's a great young man, and I know he's excited about to his next chapter in his life.
there is not many players that you could say embody the word perseverance more than Derrick Rose. Because as great as he was in high school, as great as he was in college, and as great as he was to start his career, and this is the most crazy thing I think about when his retirement announcement came out last week. If you had told me 10 years ago that Derrick Rose would play 10 more years in the NBA, I don't know if many people would have believed that after the injuries that he endured early in his career in Chicago, because we've seen those kind of injuries end careers. But the fact that he still played 10 more years in this league and was producing at a great level. And I think nothing sums it up more than that 50-point game he had when he played for the Timberwolves. When he had
Well,
that 50, crazy.
well, Mo, a lot of the things, because how quick he ascended to that level, I think that's probably would put such
It
a
sets
spotlight.
expectations.
Yeah, it was just a spotlight that was on it. But everyone's going to get hurt. That's the everyone gets hurt. Everyone's going to get hurt. Everyone's going to fall down in life. And if there's any lesson to be learned here, everyone's going to fall down. And you have a choice. Either you're going to stay down or you're going to get back up. Now, there's been a lot made about he had his ACL injury, well documented. A lot of players have ACL injuries. Okay, that's just part of the game. It's probably more common today than ever before. It was than ever.
Because he had the ACL and then a torn meniscus the year after.
Yeah.
He took a year off and then returned and had the torn meniscus.
Yeah, I mean, what made it interesting is, so like what you just said is like he took a year off. No, everyone heals differently.
Yeah, not like took a year off and he was chilling on the beach, but
No, that's what I'm saying. But now it's kind of expected. You have an ACL. You take that year to get yourself back. That's what made his injury made it different, is because he was one of the first. He's not one of. He was the first to say, you know what? Not only am I going to address the physical part of this injury, I'm going to address the mental part of the injury.
Yeah.
And because every person comes back from an injury on a different timeline, because of where all of the players play differently. His game was predicated on speed and quickness.
Explosiveness.
Okay.
Like we never see.
So his mental makeup for how he was going to come back is a little different than a guy who maybe was, Porzingis, for instance, who had an ACL injury, or let's say a Jamal Crawford who had an injury. Up until that time, you just said, hey, the report on the injury was guy has an ACL injury, he'll be back in 8 months. And everyone just said, oh, he'll be back in 8 months. And then you start saying, well, the doctor said that he's healthy. You saw that with Kawhi Leonard. These are the things that I recall about how you begin to assess or report about an injury. If Mo is injured, all right, Mo may come back in 4 weeks, but BJ may come back in 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to say, well, the doctor said BJ can come back because Mo came back.
And it's also obviously I was never playing in the NBA on like Derrick Rose's level, but different injuries, I can only speak from first person experience, but like sometimes you have an injury and then when you come back to play, you want to do stuff on the court, but your mind doesn't let you do it. You know, like you want to go up to block a shot, but subconsciously your body won't jump as high as you did previously. Not because you can't jump that high, but because you're thinking, well, if I land again and I tear my ACL again, then I'm cooked. You see what I'm saying? Like the mental side
Again,
of
the mental side of the injury is one of those things that you have to give people time to figure out how to get comfortable back again in their body at an elite level.
Mhm.
It's not like you're coming back to play pickup basketball. You're coming back to play.
Exactly the best league in the world.
So that to me is what I learned more than anything is he was the first. He was like one of the first, if not the first,
Yeah,
where it was reported back at this level. It was like every day
yeah,
because of his what he meant to that organization. Because with him, they were a championship caliber team. Without him, maybe they were a first round team, a team that. So, however, the thing I recall most was all players, they have to fall down. All players have to persevere. But, I'm just so happy for him that he was able to always accept where he was at in his career. He never tried to be something that he wasn't. When he was a star player, he accepted that. When he became a role player, he accepted that. When he was out of the rotation in a place or two, he accepted that. He never ever got caught up in what he wanted to be. So I always respected that, because as a professional athlete, everyone's going to experience, for the most part, you're going to experience being a starter. You're going to experience being a role player, and then you're going to experience coming off the bench. Okay, that's how this game goes. Whether you are an MVP or you come into the, you're probably going to experience those three, and you have to be comfortable experiencing those three as you go through your professional career.
Mhm.
If there's anything he adjusted to what this business is all about, he had an amazing run. And I mean, when you say respect, I mean the people that he touched, the lives that he touched, how he always was very professional about the game, and how he attempted to prepare himself for the game speaks for itself. So, congratulations to him. You never know how long this is going to last. For him to play 16 years at the point guard position was an incredible achievement to him and his family. And now he's ready to move on. And so I respect that too. And, you never want to see someone walk away. However, that day is coming. And I'm just happy that he was able to do it on his terms, do it when he was ready to do it. And like I said, I'm really excited for him and see what's going to come about in his life next.
Absolutely. I got to ask you, what's the deal with chess? Because there was a video that went viral once. He was at a Drake concert, but he was playing chess on his phone the whole time. And even in his kind of little Instagram thing he put out after his retirement, he referenced chess as a big factor. He used it as a metaphor. What's the deal with that?
I'll let him tell it. I always like to let him tell it, but he, Derrick has this reputation of being really quiet. Like, oh, he's quiet, he's shy, and all these things. Well, I'll let him begin to share as much as he's willing to share with his personality. He has a lot to say.
Hmm. Hmm.
He has a lot to say, and he will say and share with his personality as much as he wants. Right? I don't think it's it's not my position to share. I'll let him share however much he wants to share or not share. But he loves chess, right? And we talk a lot about chess. I love chess. I happen to be really bad at it, but I love it. It's like one of those things. I'm not a good player, but I love to play it and I love to watch it. I love to watch elite chess. I mean, I could watch chess all day, and I love to go to tournaments. I don't know if you knew that, but I love to go to tournaments and watch people. And one of the things I love about chess is that, unlike life, everyone starts out in chess with the same pieces.
Hmm.
That's about the only game I know where everyone starts out with the same amount of pieces, and then you play. It's not like basketball where some guy has speed, some guys have strength. you may have different things, in life. You start out, this person has this person's from there. But chess, everyone starts out with the same pieces. So I respect that. And one thing I know about Derrick is he loves the silence of the game.
Mm.
Like if there's anything that he enjoys, it's the silence of the game.
Well, you got to really think 3, 4, 5 moves ahead when you're playing chess.
Well, you're playing obviously with your own thoughts. But if you don't play with the other person's thoughts, you probably have no chance to win, especially against an elite player.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, why did one move there? You better know why they moved there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to do a quick analysis of the entire board, or else you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot going on here in this game. You're like, what are these people doing? You know what I mean? There's a lot going on. So I think mentally it just stimulates him in a way that that not a lot of things do. So I think the mental stimulation. The one thing I know he loves about it is it doesn't matter really how old you are. You could be 70 years old, and you could play against someone like 7 years old, and you could have a competitive game. And there's always room for improvement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And anybody can be beat at any given time. So it's a great game, and I don't know if you play chess or not, Mo, but it's a great game.
Of course.
Yeah, I love.
I'll be thinking 2 steps ahead.
Yeah. I love the game. I just want to be good without practicing, which is impossible.
Impossible. You got to get a chess app. That's where it's at now. You got to get.
I have the apps and to do all that. It doesn't matter.
I know you ain't using no apps.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I know BJ's just got phone, text, and that's it.
Yeah. I do that, but he loves chess though. I mean, he'll play with you. I mean, I can imagine him being in the park, just sitting down playing chess all day. I mean, that's what I imagine him doing at some point. It's just playing chess. He loves it, and it's a great game. And God, like I said, I just wish I was good. I really do. I just want to be like great at chess.
See, I always think I'm good until I play someone who's better than me.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like you always think you're good. You're only as good until you find someone better than you. But but BJ, you love to talk about the business of basketball, and Derrick Rose made an impact on people off the court, on the court. But the business of basketball, the Derrick Rose rule, adopted by the NBA's collective bargaining agreement, was the first time that a player coming off their rookie contract was eligible to earn 30% of the salary cap rather than the standard 25%, which changed the NBA forever. Because after that, we saw, I think it was like Blake Griffin, Paul George, and more recently like Luka Doncic get those contracts because he ascended to such a high level so early in his career. For those of you guys who don't know, to be eligible for the Derrick Rose rule and get that 30%, you've got to be selected to an NBA team, all NBA team in the player's fourth season or in 2 of the 3 seasons between their second and fourth season. You've got to be selected as Defensive Player of the Year or MVP whilst on that rookie contract. That I don't know how much you can say about these negotiations and whatnot, but that has now gone down in history. You've got the Larry Bird rule, you got the Derrick Rose rule. So how did that all come about? What can you tell us about that situation there?
Well, first, it came about because Derrick performed. Let's get that out of the way. You know what I mean? Before anyone starts taking credit, Derrick performed. And I mean, he came into this league just like gangbusters. I mean, he came in and just, Mo, I can, there's like moments, like I can't really remember the entire 16 years, but I remember this moment. Like he came in his rookie year, and Mo, every game and every day we would talk just about basketball and what he was going to do. And he just wanted to know every aspect of the game. And the thing we would talk about, and I hope he shared this at some point, is how we would talk about just the nuances of the game. He just wanted to know how to manage a game. He didn't really want to know, like, hey, can you help me out like how to score? Or tell me about like hey, B, can you help me out on a screen roll? he was just fascinated with how to manage time and score. And I always appreciated that because the greatest players all know they have an awareness of time and score. You can't be a great player if you don't know how to manage the game. You can't just like score points. You got to know how to score. You got to know when to score. You got to know when to share the basketball. You got to know when you have to play your isolation game. You got to know how to go in and out. And he was just fascinated with how to manage the game at the lead guard position and score when he needed to score. So we would only talk about Mo that. Like he would say, okay, I'm playing against the Dallas Mavericks. And at the time, I can remember Jason Kidd. He was like, well, Jason Kidd is like Hall of Fame player. What is he doing? Like, how do you control the game and not score? And he just wanted to know that. And then he would play against Steve Nash. And he wanted to know about Steve Nash.
Yeah.
And then we would just go Chris Paul and Darren Williams. I could just remember Rondo.
Those.
So and Rondo was one of the best. And I can remember Mo that year because it was his rookie year. And I made the decision not to go to Boston because I didn't want Derrick to get nervous. Like I was like, if I remember correctly, I think it was the 8 seed. I think they were the 8 seed.
Yep.
I think whatever.
That to this day remains one of my favorite playoff series.
So I can remember the conversation. I can remember this conversation.
In 09.
Yeah, I can remember the conversation. And I thought if I came to the game, it would make him nervous. It was just like it's going to be his first playoffs. They had like Hall of Famers. You had the big ticket, Garnett, you had Ray Allen, you had Pierce, you had Rondo, you had all these guys. And I remember I was like, you know what?
Fresh off a championship as well.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Hear me out. I remember we talked. And at the time I was living in Chicago. So Mo, we would not only talk, I would see him.
You'd be there, yeah.
See him. I would strategically go on the road, but I didn't want him to see me on the road. I would go on the road just because I always encourage him to be a great player because the great players take their show on the road, right? All right, it's great. Yeah, anybody can get 30 at home. Well, not anybody, but if you're a good player, you can get 30 at home. But if you're a great player, you get 30 on the road and you take your show on the road. So I would go just enough to kind of, help him through the ups and downs of his rookie year, but he didn't have many downs. But in the playoffs, I thought, God, I want to see him. But at the same time, I want him to like feel like how tough the playoffs are going to be. And I made the decision not to go to Boston just because I wanted to give him enough space to kind of figure out, thinking, well, it's going to be tough. He'll figure out this first 2 games. And then I'll meet him back in Chicago when he comes back and we'll make a few adjustments. He'll tell me what he learned. I'll see some things and then he'll kind of go through it. And I'll never forget this, Mo. So we started talking and only person he wanted to talk about was Rondo and how he was able to get everyone involved. He's like, B, I remember he was like, B, like, so how does Rondo know when to pass it to Ray Allen? B, how does he know when to look at Ray Allen and then go to Paul Pierce? B, how does he know how to push the tempo when those guys aren't on the floor and Big Baby and all? And bro, he was asking all this, and I thought, God, this is a very sophisticated conversation for like a rookie guard, right? So at the end of this conversation, Mo, we're like an hour and a half into the conversation. He asked me the question. He goes, so how do I win this game? I never forget it. Just out of nowhere. Just like we're talking. He wants to know about Rondo, and he was fascinated. He was like, B, man, like, how should I defend him? Because he doesn't really shoot. He just gets to places where he can pass it. And he was just asking all these questions. And then all of a sudden he just said, so how do I win the game? And I thought, God, that's interesting. And I was like, well, what did your coach say? He was like, yeah, we kind of haven't gone over the game plan yet. But what do you think? And then I remember what I thought all those years when I was in Chicago playing. what was the most important thing whenever you're in a fight? Win the first quarter. And I told him, just like this, Mo, I said, Derrick, the most important part of this series, I want to see if you can win the first quarter of the game. Don't worry about winning the game. Just win the first quarter. He was like, that doesn't make sense. I said, yeah, it makes sense. If you win the first quarter, you're going to establish that they are going to be in a fight for the rest of the series. Just win the first quarter. And then after you win the first quarter, let your instincts determine if you are good enough to win the game. And that's all I said, Mo. He was like, B, that's all I got to do is win the first quarter. I said, first quarter, first game, just win that quarter. And then you will find out if they're ready to fight, and you're going to let them know you're ready to fight. Mo, he had a first game. He didn't have a first quarter. He had a first game, Mo. That was unreal.
36 points, tying Kareem record for most points in a playoff debut by a rookie, to go along with, I think, 11 assists and 4 rebounds. And they won in overtime.
Yes. And I'll never forget when he called right after the game. Everyone was like so excited. He goes, was that what you were talking about? And he just kind of casually said it. Oh, he casually said it. Like, is that what you're talking about? I was like, well, you're in a fight now.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, now Mo, and they went 7 games. And Mo, I've never been happier for someone to, like, you're in a fight and you knew you were in a fight and you fought. Like, now, they were clearly overmatched with this team, but Mo, he did exactly what you set out to do. You throw the first punch, you let the team know, hey, we're here to fight. We're not here to, like, we don't know if we're going to win, but Mo, you're going to be in a fight. And that series went 7. And Mo, I'm telling you, the games in Chicago were so incredible. The games in Boston were like
I'm telling you, it was one of my favorite playoff series.
No, it was, yes. And Mo, and that team and that kid, they put it out on the line, and they just lost to a better team. But however, that set the tone for the rest of his career. Yep. That first quarter of that game. And that was the first time, Mo, I saw a young player, like, sometimes people will ask you things and you'll say something, and then you'll be like, were they listening, or did they really hear what I'm saying? Mo, he did it. And then he was able to absorb information. That's the most impressive thing about him. Mo, he can absorb information, and actually he had the talent where he can implement it during the course of a game. Like, Mo, that's the one thing about him that I admire the most. Like, Mo, I could tell him something or show him something, and Mo, he would do it.
Mm-hmm.
He had that level of talent. And I just remember that game because, Mo, he was doing this against Rondo. I mean, Rondo was a Hall of Fame. He had a Hall of Fame career, in my opinion.
If you didn't watch Rondo in his prime, you have to go and watch Rondo win. Because when you look at the numbers, and he's averaging like 9 points a game or whatever, it doesn't know that. But if you watch the games, he's one of the best. And I seen a tweet the other day from some kid. He goes, I can't believe people used to debate about Rondo being the best player in the league. And then he pulled up the stats. And I said, my brother, you just went outside for that.
Yeah. Rondo,
Rondo was so good, they were willing to trade him for Chris Paul.
Yeah,
the Pelicans were going to trade Chris Paul for Rondo. That's how good he was.
You had Paul Pierce, you had Kevin Garnett, you had, they were just really.
And they had an unbelievable regular season, according to all the numbers you want to pull up. And they were the 1 seed, the reigning champs. So imagine if this season coming up, the Celtics go on another huge win streak, get the number 1 seed, and whoever is 8th seed in the East takes them to 7 games. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, he was just, and like I said, I just remember that. I remember he called me right after the game, and he was like that? Is that what you're talking about? I was like, yeah, just like that. Mm-hmm. And I was just so happy for him, and that he just loved the game. And Mo, you hear people say this all the time, hey, I just want to win. Well, I'm not kidding, Mo. I never heard him say, hey, I'm gonna get numbers. I never heard him say, I'm going to do this. Mo, he just really tried to win. He didn't care. Like Mo, I don't, and yeah, he scored a lot of points, but truly, Mo, he was really, it was like, it wasn't like a natural occurrence for him to shoot. He would rather just distribute the basketball, run the team, and do those things. But he was just that I remember that moment, and that was the one moment I knew I was like, oh, this kid is a little different. Like I knew he was a little different.
Well,
I knew the game meant that much to him, and for him
he was
to
the
be able to do
first player the Bulls drafted to score 10 or more points in his first 10 games. Rookie of the month to start off his career. And then All-Star Weekend, he played in the rookie challenge, but he also won the skills challenge against like Hall of Fame players that were there and ended it with that crazy dunk. So it's like from day one, he was ready to go.
Yeah, he was always a fun kid, but then he had the ability to just turn on the switch. And he took basketball very serious. He perfected his craft.
We could talk about this all day, and I'm sure throughout the season we'll continue these conversations. But what an amazing career! What an amazing basketball player! What an amazing talent!
It really is.
And then
And
I know
we'll get him on. We'll get him on the show. Yeah, I don't like to. I want to give him time to kind of hang out, and he's just excited to take his kids to school. Like, well, like the things like he's just excited to do that. Hey, B, I get a chance to take my kids to the school. He said to me, "Hey, B, I get a chance to like you and I could talk after we drop the kids off at school." I was like, no, well, hey, man, babe, I think I would rather be playing in an NBA game. He was excited just for that,
man,
it's
that's
just
crazy.
things. Yeah, I know. So he just has a beautiful spirit about him. And like I said, I get a chance to see it, but let him share that with you. And these are just like little things. And I could talk about him all day. He's one of my favorite people. And I'm gonna miss watching him every now and then. I must admit, I would just watch highlights and go, wow. I remember I was like Mo at every one of those games, and to be there to watch him through those moments. I remember my wife and I doing the Christmas holidays when he stole the ball. I can remember we were just talking about it. We were in New York because we always like to go to New York for the holidays, for the Christmas. We like to see the Rockefeller tree, do all this stuff.
Yeah, New York Christmas is the best.
Yeah, and the Bulls played the Knicks that year, and Derrick just put on a show, and he would just do things like that, and it would always. He would be very casual about it, like with my wife and my kids, and he'd never come out like excited. He'd be like, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing?" Just kind of like I just casually dropped 35, 36 in the garden, like no big deal. He would just be casual about it. Hey, B, let's grab a bite. Like, hey, okay, everybody else in the family is just like, oh my, everybody. He's just like, oh, okay, you want to grab a bite, and just kind of hang out.
I got to ask you one more thing. July 7th, 2019. Derrick Rose signed with the Detroit Pistons.
Yes.
How much of that was him wanting to sign with the Pistons, and how much was it you trying to get D Rose on the Pistons? Because when I saw that signing, I knew there had to be something, and now years later, it's all making sense to me.
Well, it was just a lot of times, well, sometimes in life things just work out, right? And Derrick was, he was at a place in his career, and it was just a good fit for him. The economics of it worked for him. The opportunity where the team was at worked for him, and it was a good fit. Now, certainly I wasn't going to stand in the way, Mo, to go to Detroit. That's one time we never had a conversation on whether this was a good fit. That was
exactly.
Yeah. But I can tell you, I had a little celebration when he went there, to go to Detroit. And but it was good. He really enjoyed Detroit, and Detroit enjoyed him. So it was a good place. Seeing him in Detroit was good.
First player in Pistons history to record 7 consecutive 20+ point games.
So off the bench, did he do that, or
just off the bench?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He really he just really had just a fascinating career. You know what I mean? Because there was, and like I said, he was always present. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, oh, this is who I was. This is what I did. He was like, no, this is where I'm at. And you know, as an agent, there was there was one award I really wanted him to get because I just wanted to me it was just he never said it, but I can say it now. I really wanted him to be the sixth man of the year. I really wanted him to be that because of where he was at and to be able to be that impactful. And he really figured out how to be impactful as the coming off the bench. And that's the one thing I always encouraged him is to find out how to be impactful to the game.
Yeah, 2019, 2020, and 2021. He was in the running for sixth man of the year.
Yeah.
And in 2021, he also received a first place MVP vote 10 years after he won it.
Yeah, I just thought I always encouraged him to be impactful during the course of the game. And what he did in the early parts of his career, look, he could dictate and manage the game. But one of the biggest achievements, Mo, is okay, when you're a starter and you're playing 35 plus minutes, you can impact the game, especially at the lead guard position. But you know what, Mo? One of the biggest challenges that he had and that we would always discuss is how to impact the game as a bench player because you're only playing 25 to maybe 30 minutes and be just as impactful. And that to me is what was one of his greatest accomplishments is he figured out how to integrate his talent and be impactful during the course of the game. So, you know, he just figured things out. He always had a curious mind. He has a very curious mind. He loves to ask questions, and he's going to be just fine. But that was one thing that I really wanted for him, and that was probably the only thing I ever wanted for him, because he was going to figure out everything else. But I wanted him to do that because I knew how much the game meant to him, and it was probably I remember when he scored 50 in that game coming off the bench. I mean, you score 50 points in a game.
We're talking about awards. The NBA used to have an award in the 80s called the Comeback Player of the Year Award.
Right.
Bernard King won it in 81. Adrian Dantley won it in 84. Michael Ray Richardson won it in 85. But then I think they stopped it. I think they should bring it back and make it the Derrick Rose Award because we have like the most improved player, but then I think they should have Comeback Player of the Year for a player who may have had an injury or maybe had time away from basketball. And then if they come back and they're cooking, I think that should be the award because now they're naming all the awards after players, right?
I can tell you this. He gave everything he had to the game. And so that I have no doubt about. That is, I mean, that to me, that's your greatest achievement. People talk about, you know, how many chips you got and all those things. That sounds great. But truthfully, when you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can say, hey, I gave everything I had to the game, that's what it's all about. And that young man did. And he should be celebrated. Thank you, Derrick, for what you did for the game. You left the game better than when you found it. And you've inspired so many people that currently are still playing in the game, young people that looked up to you. I can't tell you the countless people that gave him the respect. And I want to say this last thing. And I want to say a special thanks to the media. Because the media knew this, many in the media, and we know who you are, they knew about this and nothing leaked. That just says how much respect they have for him because he respected their profession. So I want to thank the media, right? We talk about the media and the narratives. No, there's some good people in the media, Mo. And not one person, they held on to this story, Mo, and they knew it. You know, you could have leaked that story and you could have got all of the likes and the tweets.
I know, I kept my mouth shut.
Yes. And not one person. So, Mo, I want to thank the media. I know Derrick thanked the media and all those people who covered him throughout his career. So thank you. And that means a lot because we talk about all this, the media is negative. Well, you know what? I can tell you firsthand. Hey, there's some good people. There's good people out here. And thank you. And so I'm just thankful that I was there and I was able to watch it. And I can't wait to hear what he's going to share. I'm really fascinated to see what he's going to share because I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve that he wants to do. And so I'm just really looking forward to what's coming next for him.
Yes, sir. What a career it was. Shout out to D Rose each and every time. And shout out to you as well, BJ, for giving him that knowledge and guidance along the way.
Well, I wish I could say I gave him knowledge. I didn't do. I was just more. I want to practice. I wanted to practice what I learned. All great mentors or great teachers do, or great coaches. You just get out of the way. I just, Mo. I would really love to think that I had something to do with this. But you know what I did, Mo? I didn't mess it up. I didn't tell him how to shoot. I didn't tell him how to play. I didn't tell him, Mo, you know what I did, Mo? I got my popcorn and I said, let me see what this young man's going to do next. And Mo, it worked. So
special. But you're going to need to take a different approach with me. You can't leave me to my own devices. That's just trouble.
Like I said, Mo, with a great flair. You're a great guy. You're a great guy.
Hey, B, I'm a great player. You just ain't on the court.
And you've never called me for help about that.
Hey, I don't need to. I don't know if we'll ever call no one. So here we are. Exactly. But no, in all seriousness, shout out to D Rose, shout out to you as well, and shout out to everyone who sent a message straight away after D Rose retired to say that they're looking forward to hearing what BJ has to say, and hope you enjoy this episode. We are going to be taking a short break from the podcast. I'm going to be making my way to Abu Dhabi because my Celtics are in town, and I thought, well, I can't not see my team in their first game after winning the championship. So I'm gonna make my way over there. I'm not really working. I'm just taking a little holiday. I feel like I deserve it. I feel like I deserve. BJ, I turn 30 next month. I ain't really doing nothing to celebrate my birthday, so I thought I'd treat myself to this.
I'm sure you're doing something. I don't know what you're doing. But
hey, you don't need to know what I'm doing. But I'm gonna be gone for a week, so we're gonna take a little break from the podcast. But once I'm back, we're going every day. Monday to Friday, just like I don't know
what I'm going to do not being able to do the podcast. So maybe
download the chess.com app and practice your chess because next time I see you, we're going to play a game of chess. How about that?
Oh, yes. All right. Sounds good.
We can get that chessboard out. So you get to practicing and I will be in the sunshine and I'll see my Celtics fresh off their championship. And actually, I may have a surprise guest or two for future episodes of the podcast. I'm taking my camera and microphones just in case. You know what I'm saying? You never know. We might have a surprise for the listeners. So make sure you subscribe to the show. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. We appreciate each and every one of you. So I'll see you guys in a week. And until next time, get buckets.